Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Martin Andrews, and I am so glad that you're here today to join me for this session supporting the shift to inquiry. We are still getting people coming in, so I'm admitting them right now. And I can see that our chat is already active, which is great. I'm going to ask you a few times to chat some responses to questions. So please just keep things going in there, and we'll wait a few more seconds for everyone to join. Hope everyone's doing well on this Friday and find a way to enjoy the weekend. And I think we're going to go ahead and start. Okay. So I want to know a little bit about you. I see a lot of names and some faces out there. And if you could, in the chat, tell me what your role is in the educational landscape. Are you a teacher, an elementary teacher, a K-2 teacher, a middle school teacher? Maybe even what you teach, world history or US history or economics or geography. Are you an instructional coach, a high school teacher, principal? Why don't you share that with me in the chat? High school, sixth grade, middle school, world geography, social studies consultants. We have some higher eds, associate professors, more middle school. Whatever your role is in schools or education, I hope that you can get something out of the presentation today. And I can tell you just a little bit about me. I taught social studies, middle school and high school for 8 years in Ohio. I have to admit to this crowd that I am a Buckeye, a graduate of the Ohio State University. Please do not hold that against me. I taught for about 8 years and then moved on to higher ed and taught at the college level for a little while. And then I joined a company called Inquire Ed that creates inquiry-based social studies, and that's where I am now. So I've had a broad range of experience, but I am still learning so much about how to bring inquiry into the classroom. And so that's why I'm here today, is to explore that a little bit with you. And the reason why the session title is supporting the shift to inquiry is because we're really talking in a way about how to shift a school system, how to shift teachers across a school system to inquiry-based social studies. So I want to dive right in to first, maybe a little bit of extra offering that I have for you is I went ahead and created a little bit of a virtual hub for this conference, and I'll share that link with you. And basically on the virtual hub, you'll find it's like I miss being in person at conferences because I usually have a booth and I can give out things. So this is my digital tchotchkes that I'm giving you. There's a Zoom background. There's some posters. There's a couple videos that we made for the national conference that are really fun to watch. And there's a really great resource there too, called a curriculum rubric. And I'm going to talk about that here later on. But visit that at your leisure. And I'll actually then post this presentation, the slide deck, up there after the session is over. So go ahead and check that out if you'd like. I'd I'd play a little game here. And if you can use the chat again, when you say inquiry, that's me, what do you think? So when you say inquiry, I think ... Can you write in the chat the first things that come to your mind when someone says inquiry? Questioning, learn, asking, searching for information, Samantha says, discover, explore, critical thinking, investigating, investigate, great words, researching. What about inquiry in social studies? Is there any words that come to mind when you think about inquiry, specifically in social studies? Essential questions, big. Yeah, I mean, those are the things that compelling questions. Absolutely. It's great to get that out because it's so often that we go into a place, multiple perspectives, the why, the how, love it. When we go into places and we talk about inquiry and we just expect everyone to know exactly what we're talking about. And you can see inquiry all over the standards, all over the social studies standards across the country. And so I want to norm a little bit and talk about inquiry for students and inquiry for teachers. So when I say inquiry for students, I mean that students are experiencing deep, active engagement in the investigations, we saw that word, of social studies content. It's not a one day we study this and the next day we study that. It is deep investigation into social studies content. It's not memorizing facts, it's deep investigation. Students also experience responsive instruction. That means what they are experiencing comes into the instruction, that we actively invest in their, I'm going to let people in the waiting room, that we actively invest our attention to their interests and involve it in the course of an inquiry. And then inquiry isn't easy. There is an entire misunderstanding of inquiry out there. I don't know if you have encountered it, but some people think inquiry is just this laissez-faire kind of classroom where students are investigating just whatever they want. That is not inquiry. Inquiry is rigorous, and it should be just that sweet spot of productive struggle for students, so that it's not too easy, it's not too hard, but they have to struggle to discern meaning and make meaning and solve and address real world problems. What happens when they experience that in an inquiry class? Well, they become resilient learners who can adapt to changing circumstances. They're engaged, they become engaged, informed, and socially responsible members of their community. And they become critical consumers of information, goods, and services. And how necessary is that right now? That our students become critical consumers of information, that we become critical consumers of information. But inquiry there are two sides to the coin of inquiry. So there is inquiry for students. And what does inquiry mean for teachers? Because there is a difference when you talk about being an inquiry-based teacher. So an inquiry-based teacher designs experiences. They create rigorous standards-based content. They incorporate the student interests in authentic contexts. They use high-quality, diverse sources in their classroom, and they promote sustained inquiry that has some kind of action to it, so that a student's learning has meaning in the world. It impacts the world in some way. In terms of their instruction, that facilitator role that they play to prompt independent learning, to provide guidance and scaffolding, to not be the source of knowledge, but to be on the side and to mediate between the student and the source of knowledge. That An inquiry-based teacher has to foster a culture of equity and collaboration in their classrooms because students are investigating independently as much as possible, and you need a deep culture of inquiry over time. That I'm going to admit to more people, that an inquiry-based teacher assesses and differentiates learning experiences. So inquiry isn't a one approach to all. And finally, an inquiry teacher is promoting a growth mindset by facilitating students learning from each other as well. Now, look at that list. It's a huge task. It's a big lift to ask teachers to do that, to make those changes, to shift to that kind of instruction. And what I want you to think about and see if you can put in the chat is, what do you think on this next slide? What is the biggest obstacle? What is the obstacle that teachers face, that schools face when they try to shift their social studies instruction to inquiry? Is it one, schools lack high quality instructional materials? Is it two, teachers weren't trained to teach using inquiry? Is it three, that there's not enough time to work out the shifts that need to be made and the different strategies that you have to use in an inquiry classroom? So we get lots of ones and twos and threes and 1, 2, 3s, all to some extent. And I think you've kind of you found me out, because I guess it's a yeah, D, all of the above, Christy says. Absolutely. For all of the above. Absolutely. That the current model to ask teachers and to shift to inquiry, you're putting hurdles in their way, that they don't have the materials. They often don't have the time or the professional learning or support or training as pre-service teachers to be able to teach this way. And we actually hear that from all over the country. And I want to explore an analogy that I think really helps me understand the situation that teachers are in. And maybe it's because it's 5 o'clock where I am, around 5 o'clock. It's probably 6 o'clock for some of you Michiganders. So I'm kind of hungry. So let's use a analogy that has to do with food. Let's say that there are 4 different factors to a great meal. And let's say you are tasked with creating a gourmet meal for a lot of people, but someone else is doing the first task. They are the sort of flavor scientists. They're figuring out all the flavors they want in the meal. They're figuring out the pairings that go together. Maybe they're looking at the regions that the food can come from, or the types of food, vegetables or different meats. So they're figuring out the high level decisions. And then there's another group that comes in and says, okay, with all the flavors, all the pairings, all the regions, all the type, now we're going to set the menu and the courses. We're going to pick the dishes, the main dishes and the side dishes. And then someone gives that to you. They give you all of this high level thinking and they say, okay, go cook it. So if they also say, hey, listen, right back there, we have a professional kitchen and it's filled with all the best ingredients that you need, all the quality tools and knives and pots and pans and everything you need back there. Don't worry about it. It's all back there. And not only that, there's a huge kitchen staff that know the best cooking methods, the strategies, that they know exactly how to prepare this. Then I might go, oh my gosh, phew, because I don't know a souffle from a soup. I don't know anything about cooking. Everything I cook burns. But if I've got the best ingredients in a professional kitchen and there's people back there knowing what to do, then I'll be okay. But if those two things aren't there, if you receive this assignment that is complicated with the flavors and dishes that you've never heard of, and you don't have any ingredients, and you don't have a kitchen to cook in or the tools, and you don't have the know-how to cook a souffle and do all those things, then you're in trouble. I would be in trouble. I probably would spend most of my time out looking for the ingredients and trying to find things to cook with, that by the time I got to cook, I wouldn't even have time. Now, what I want to make is a comparison between what a teacher faces, because right now there's a challenging recipe, because there is this great document that many of you are familiar with. It's the C3 framework. And if you've seen the C3 framework, there's so much deep thought put into that about what kind of skills students need to develop throughout their social studies experience. Not only that, it's what does it look like in kindergarten and then first grade, and how does it develop to third, fourth, fifth, all of these skills and these targets. And their intention was to create that and then hand it over to the states, and the states create their standards from it. And that's exactly what happens. So in Michigan's social studies standards probably were created by looking at the C3 framework and looking at past content and debating it and talking about those things. And then it's handed down to teachers and to schools. And if there were high quality instructional materials that went with that, and if there was deep and meaningful professional development and learning about teaching strategies and methods, but there aren't. And that's the situation that teachers are in when we're asking them to shift to inquiry. There's nothing underneath there in many cases. Some of you might belong to districts that are really invested and are going out and finding high quality instructional materials and are working with teachers and being patient with them to give them the time to learn how to teach in this new way. So that's an analogy that helps me understand the situation that teachers are in. And so what recourse do we have to help teachers make the shift to inquiry? And that's what I want to look at next. So the challenges we've identified is that in terms of professional learning, there's not enough time for that. In terms of high quality materials, they aren't provided to teachers. And we aren't really giving them the time and the mindset for change. And I want to talk about that too. So in terms of professional learning, when I say PD or professional learning, what does that look like in the schools that you are in? Share with me in the chat. What is professional learning in your school? I would love to know what that looks like. What was the last professional learning that you had? PLC, great. Sit and get, death by meeting. Okay. School improvement. This is something that varies so much between schools. I mean, some schools let out early and have time for their teachers to engage in their PLCs. And sometimes those PLCs, just because they exist, doesn't mean that they're necessarily super effective. They become time where people are grading their papers for other classes or things like that. Here's what I do, a share out. Working on student social adjustments. Learning things that don't really enhance my teaching. The district explains new programs. Okay. Yeah, so if we want teachers to shift to inquiry-based social studies, then we need to rethink how we're operating our professional learning programs. how many of you have, give me a yes if you are, if you have instructional coaches in your schools or districts. Because one of the things that, yes, one of the things that can really help a teacher, I am one, yes, yes, yes. Investing in that instructional leadership is one of the first steps to allowing teachers and supporting them in that shift. Teachers need that ongoing feedback and support to shift. Make sure you have those flag bearers that can provide support along the way, if that's what you're asking for your teachers. Those professional, you have to, I think we had earlier, like, what was the statement? I'll look back. Learning things that really don't enhance my teaching, Stacy said. And this is really the missing connection, right? Is that what I do all day isn't connected to what I am learning in my professional learning often, right? They don't connect to the day-to-day classroom instruction that's happening. The two need to be deeply connected. And I'm going to talk about a way that that can happen. And the space and time, that seems like an obvious thing, but we know that a one-day PD or a conference isn't enough. And I know this is a lot to ask those of you who are instructional leaders or that are district administrators, but if we want to make this shift, they need structured, teachers need structured time for collaboration and reflection with colleagues. Those PLCs are great, but one of the things that has to happen is we have to find a way to connect what's happening in that PLC to what's happening in the classroom. I would encourage you all, and I will share this in the chat here in a second, is there's this really great report from the Carnegie Corporation that looks at what they call curriculum-based professional learning. And they look at the highest performing districts, the ones that are really making shifts in instruction. And what's similar is that teachers are using a common curriculum and they're getting together and they're saying, oh, this didn't work, that didn't work. What about this? I tried this today. Oh yeah, that worked. And that curriculum-based professional learning provides a focus for that PLC. So it doesn't become a complaining session, or it doesn't become we don't have any instructional materials because our district hasn't provided them. What did you find on Teachers Pay Teachers? What did you find? It doesn't become a place just to grab all the resources because you don't have it. So one of the things that we can really do is provide teachers with those high quality materials. If you want to shift to inquiry-based social studies across a school or district, curricular tools aren't optional. You can't not give teachers the high quality instructional materials that they need. And a lot of times when we say curriculum, we just mean the high level standards, the scope and sequences, but we don't provide the materials and the sources and the strategies and the lesson plans that teachers need. So if you're looking to scale inquiry, your teachers are going to need some kind of curricular tools. And this is a big question. How many people out there have been on a curriculum committee where you have had to write your own curriculum? How much work is that? Yeah, okay. That's a lot of work, especially if you want to get down to the instructional level, especially if you want to find the sources for teachers, especially if you want to work to help them understand the strategies. And it's not like you have a lot of free time to do that. Lots of work. Doing that now, lots of work. So consider the pros and cons of writing your own. Now that means that that you have to find something, and that's another hard thing. But writing curriculum can allow for deep teacher engagement, but so much challenge surrounds that. And lots of times I see that we partner sometimes with Chicago Public Schools or Denver Public Schools, and those places have huge social studies departments, and they have big budgets, and they're writing their own curriculum, but they have a staff, a team that's doing it in some places. So also, when you pick a curriculum, consider if it truly empowers inquiry-based learning. That's a question, because there's a lot of, it's easy to put a sticker on something and say that it empowers inquiry. But if it doesn't allow teachers to contextualize for their classroom, so they have to be able to adapt to what students are experiencing. And if it doesn't give some sort of voice and choice to students, then it's not inquiry. And other subject areas I am jealous of. I am jealous of ELA, science, and math. I love social studies, obviously, but they have independent reviewing organizations like Ed Reports. If you've never been on it, it's just fabulous. If you're looking for a science curriculum or an ELA curriculum or a math curriculum, you go on Ed Reports and they have broken down what makes a good curriculum. They have broken it down and looking at whether or not the curriculum meets the expectations of college and career ready standards. They pay attention to instructional shifts that are happening in the curriculum. They are ensuring that the curriculum is research-based, that it's culturally relevant, and it provides aligned professional learning. Guess what? We don't have something like that in the social studies. And so when you are out there, a lot of people decide to write their own curriculum because they can't find a good one, frankly, one that does what they want it to do. So this is more of a problem. I'm not providing you with a solution to this. We came up with a curriculum rubric that you can actually get from that landing page that I sent you, that breaks it down, social studies curriculum, into inquiry-based, culturally responsive, diverse and varied sources, teacher support, and there's one other that I'm forgetting about right now. And we're doing that because it's not out there. And frankly, we shouldn't be doing it. Someone else should be doing that. But if you want to check that out, please do, and send me an email about it and tell me you disagree with something in it, because we want out there, and I think the social studies community wants somewhere we can go to say, hey, is this a good resource? Because without those resources, teachers are out there. 70% of teachers report spending a few hours a week on sites like Teachers Pay Teachers. And I don't know if you've read some of the recent reports, but those aren't vetted materials. There's no process to check the accuracy of those materials. And a lot of times we'll see teachers are getting in to trouble when they pull a resource off because they're desperate and they need something and they use it in their classroom and there's something objectionable or questionable in it. So we need to provide teachers with vetted resources. Angela, I'll send that. It's earlier in the chat. I chatted it. It's basically inquired.org/MCSS, Michigan Council for the Social Studies. The last thing that you need to know is that this shift is going to take time. And it really matters that you begin to decide where your goal is going to be. What do you want across your district and across your school? Do you want everyone to be practicing inquiry? There are a number of ways that you can start to do that. And we see this happening in a lot of different districts around the country, is that they'll start a small pilot. They'll start a small pilot of teachers with an inquiry-based curriculum, or if you are writing your own, as Thomas said he was doing and others said that they are doing, once you get that, just releasing it to teachers and often isn't the best approach. Starting with a small pilot group that works with it and develops the resources around it, if you haven't gotten down to the instructional level, that figures out the holes and the problems in it, and then they can become the mentors for the other teachers who eventually adopt the curriculum. So communicating that goal and starting small is important. And so getting teachers on your side and allowing there to be that early group of those teachers who are early adopters, who want to dive in, and that who will know how to help other teachers. So that might be a really great way to understand that, hey, listen, it's not going to happen in 1 year. What if it takes 5 years to roll out a curriculum? Is that such a bad thing? Because you can do it step by step. You can get buy-in, and you can start building a team of experts that can help other teachers. So that would be one piece of advice. The next thing is stay the course. Stay the course, because it's going to get hard, and there are going to be setbacks. Change doesn't come easily. You're going to get a lot of people that are saying, "Oh, I don't know about this new inquiry in social studies," and it's going to be teachers and parents and school administrators sometimes. And so if you play for the long game and you look at that place that you want to go, and keep working toward that goal, stay the course. And the end goal can't be flexible. The path can be flexible. How you get there. If you say, oh, you know what? I was going to roll this out in a year or 2 years. Now I need to scale it back. I need to figure out a different way. That's fine. The paths can be flexible, but the end goal of inquiry-based social studies can't be flexible. So keep that goal in mind. And lastly, we adopted a new curriculum and some teachers were written up for not being on pace. Ooh. Yeah, I mean, that's not going to get you the buy-in that you need, right? And adopting a curriculum, like I feel like I need to say this, because if we take the teacher out of the classroom in a way by saying you this is scripted, you must do this on this day, I don't think that's what anybody means when they're talking about inquiry and an inquiry-based curriculum. I think that true inquiry-based curriculum has to leave a large space for the students that are in front of that teacher. And that teacher is the one who adapts and modifies and specializes that curriculum for the students in front of them. And sometimes that's going to take this long, and sometimes it's going to take that long. But if that teacher is gathering together with other teachers and they're talking about it, then that's the support they need. We cannot remove the essential nature of the improvisational and adaptive teacher. That is never going to be good. Results are going to take time. Administration needs to ensure that making the shift isn't optional. So this isn't something that you can choose not to do, but that also means if you're going to make that choice as an administrator, if you're going to say, we're all shifting to this, then there needs to be space for failure. You need to provide space and a mentality that's like, hey, I know this is hard and it might not go that well the first time. Now, if you're receiving that message from your administrator, then that's different than you're not on pace with this curriculum. You need to catch up. You're not implementing it in the right way. So it's up to administrators to leave that space. There's a great school in Ohio that we work with, Lakota, local schools, that has that fail forward mentality, and they want their teachers taking some risks. And to do that, you have to be able to say, well, sometimes we got to fall on our face. So I'm going to take you over really quickly to that curriculum guide that that I talked about, and I'll see if I can do this without losing my, yeah, there you go. /MCSS. So this is the hub that we created for the Social Studies Conference. And this is where I will put the session plan. And here you can get your Zoom backgrounds, your posters, and right here is the curriculum rubric. So if you go here, you can see a preview of it. You might need to enter your email to download it. Let's see. Oh, I have to download them all. I tell you what, you click here to download and you get all of these things. You get this great Statue of Liberty poster. And then you get It's Time for Social Studies poster and those Zoom backgrounds as well. But I can take you over to the actual document rubric, we called it. It's right here. So I want to break this down a little bit for you if you're out there searching for social studies. And it has these 5 domains of inquiry-based instruction, culturally responsive education, standards-based instruction, high-quality, diverse sources, and instructional supports and continuous PD. So it provides 5 different rubrics with specific look indicators. They don't really go down to the look for level, but they get pretty close of what you might look for when you are talking about inquiry-based instruction. So for example, we saw compelling questions in our chat. Are the units coherently designed to engage students in the creation and investigation of compelling and supporting questions? So these are the indicators that you look for. Are they building disciplinary knowledge and skills? Do lessons prompt students to evaluate sources and evidence as they build content knowledge across social studies disciplines? So that's dimensions 2 and 3 of the C3 inquiry arc. Are they prompting informed action to validate and deepen learning? And finally, are they promoting student-centered learning experience? So are the lessons structured to engage students in active inquiry? Does it require the integration of students' ideas and contributions to carry out investigations? So I really encourage you to download that and take a look if you would like. I think it could be a really great resource, even as you create your own social studies curriculum. Because if that's what you're doing, if you're creating your own social studies curriculum and you're taking that on, then this would be a good guide to help you. C3 Teachers provides a lot of great resources as well. So does the National Council for the Social Studies. But if you want to get down to really the details, it provides a really great rubric. So we're approaching some time limits here, and I wonder if there's any questions that I can answer for you. I'm working with a lot of schools and I work with a curriculum team. So if there's any questions that you have about supporting teachers as they make that shift, I would be glad to answer those. I would also say, listen, why don't you check out, if you want, inquired.org/webinars, because all of our webinars are free and they're in conjunction with the National Council for the Social Studies. Last week we had one on mirrors and windows when you pick social studies sources. The time before that, we had one about media literacy. We had Sam Weinberg on from the Stanford History Education Group. So they can be a way that you engage in professional learning. And like I said, they're all free, and we're just looking to try to have a community. Yeah, I can absolutely put the link in the chat. there's the link in the chat. The ones we have coming up, we're going to do a district spotlight on Denver Public Schools, and we're going to look at all of the steps that they went through to choose an elementary social studies curriculum. I'm hoping that they're going to share their rubrics. I'm hoping that they're going to share resources. So that'll be a really great one. We've got one coming up that's just about high quality instructional materials. The curriculum rubrics all say elementary. Yes, it is the same for secondary. These are the same things that you're going to look for in secondary instructions. But our next one coming up, we have the president of the National Council for the Social Studies, Stephanie Wager. She'll be on there along with someone else that's talking about high quality instructional materials. So check out those webinars if you can. And if we don't have any more questions, I would love to talk. Did you miss the webinar link? I might have. Oh, I did it to just, I need to do it to everyone. There you go. inquireed.org/webinars. And I'll share that, inquireed.org/MCSS again. I really appreciate everyone coming today. And I hope that if you have any more questions, if you you'll email me. My email is martin@inquireed.org. And I hope to see you at other conferences, maybe the national conference, when we all can be together, in the same room. And I'm really, one of the things that I wanted to say is that as I was preparing this presentation and I was looking at all the ways in which teachers are scrambling for sources and trying to build their own instructional materials, I once again thought about the amazing ability for teachers to adapt. And that's what the last year has taught us, that suddenly you take a group of people that have maybe never taught virtually before, and they wholeheartedly and with all their energy, and while they manage their families and their lives, start to teach in this whole new way. So it is very possible for teachers to make a shift, but we have to support them on the way. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great weekend and take care. Bye-bye.